Craig into it, who had never taught volleyball, and he was.
It's not a choir.
I haven't tried yet. My dinosaur things will see.
Yes, but actually.
Really? Where's Adam going to work on that? Is he doing his own cable company or is he doing something?
Called the USD 489 Board of Education Work Session for Monday, May 11th, 2015 to order. And then Dean will let you go through the consent agenda topics.
Okay, yeah, I just want to mention, we'll have a lot of minutes to approve from negotiations and regular board meetings. Personnel transactions, we will have several more retirees that will be announced by Monday. And one thing that I just want to bring your attention to, it'll be on the consent agenda, is the surplus items. We have a pretty substantial list that is not inclusive of everything. We'll have things at Washington yet, but this is the list of vehicles that Russ put together. The older vehicles were that purchased vehicles to replace, as well as some that we just don't use, or they're just would cost too much to get them roadworthy again. So all of those things will be on there. There's a list from some of the schools of things that they would like to get rid of. We will either do, depending on what it is, Purple Wave for vehicles and the other equipment. And like I said, as we go through Washington, there'll probably be more there, and some of the other buildings. But that'll be on the agenda for your approval. Let's see, negotiation minutes, then we'll review those, like I said, and that will be the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Tracy, do you want to go over financial reports?
The April monthly report is attached. One thing you'll notice is we are hitting 100% on some of our lines. The purchasing has been shut off for the majority of the district. We still allow some custodial supplies and capital outlay purchases after this point, but everybody else pretty much has been cut off, and so we are just waiting for the bills to come in. But all the purchase orders and everything have already been put out for those. And then Dean had asked me to include a kind of a diagram of the block grant funding changes, how it was going to affect us. And so I listed the fiscal year 14 funding, what we had prior to the block grant, and then what is in the block grant for this year and next year. Really the only difference due to the block grant for us is a reduction of $123,000 that we will not receive in LOB state aid. We will be able to make that up from our carryover that we have in LOB, so we won't see any changes there except for the reduction in state aid. And then the main thing between fiscal year 14 and 15, the big reduction there of $760,000, the majority of that was the new facilities waiting that we lost for this prior year, for this current year. Are there any questions on either of those before I go on?
Just on the block grant, you've probably read the courts, or the three judges heard the testimony. The verdict obviously is still out on that. I don't know where that'll lead us. In a lot of ways, I hope they don't change things to make it worse for us. Right now, like Tracy said, we're down to $123,250 in state aid. But if they have to do an allotment where they reduce base state aid per pupil or do something like that, it's going to hurt us more. Now, on the other side, the courts can tell them to go ahead and fund education, but they're so far in the hole, I don't see that happening. But again, we'll have to wait and see.
Dean, when did you say that panel meets again? The judges?
I'm sorry?
When do they meet again?
Well, they just did, and I don't know, Greg, do you have any idea how long that takes for them to reach to?
Generally, they have 90 days. to
Yeah,
issue a
so
ruling, but
we're not gonna, I almost bet they wait till after the session, and, but I don't know.
And then I also, excuse me, updated the projections for next year. The main things that are changing as we do receive more retirements is the increase in sick leave payout, the increase in retiree health insurance, and then also our savings from the staff. The majority of those savings, the $256,000 we have listed, is from people retiring that we are replacing with newer staff, and so we're seeing significant savings on each of those in salaries. So those are the main three. I also added professional development, the $20,000 that we've been talking about, to that to show it. So those are the other main three, though, that are going to continue to change as we get a few more retirements in here. But we're still looking pretty good with the $395,000, excuse me, that we're anticipating we'll have additional for next year with these changes.
And I think we'll see more savings in some of these areas as well. I mean, the Washington repurposed, Donna received that big grant, which was, what?
$137,000.
$137,000, and that'll pay for the move, the remodel, I mean, several things there. So things are looking good in that sense. We'll have our insurance discussion here in a minute, and we'll see that there's going to be probably savings there that I don't think are figured anything in here, are they?
Not yet.
So, and I think if you look at the very top, increased expenses, increased sick leave payout, increased retiree health insurance, I think those numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, are anticipating other retirements and those types of things. So I think those are, everything is inclusive there. Questions, anything on that? And I guess, I don't know if we ever, the NC Tech contract, I know when I first started that was an issue about, they have worked out with Tom at the high school and Marty that they will not charge us anything for those kids, and so that's a $35,000 savings, and really working well with us, so that's a big turnaround.
Okay. No other questions? All right, moving on. Dean, do you want to touch on the superintendent's report?
I have some dates that I want, well, first of all, we need to, actually I have a meeting tomorrow with Dustin Avey from Piper Joffrey on, I mean, just to kind of a update on where we are and things. How do we want to pursue where we are with a future bond issue? Do you guys feel comfortable if we have a new board and all of you at the next work session or sometime sit down and talk about it, or even have a different meeting, but strategy or what we want to look at? Because if we're going to do something, we need to make a decision now to get the ball rolling. If not, that's fine. But if the intent is to throw something out there, we need to start that process. What are your thoughts?
If we moved forward right now, Dean, you'd be thinking April of 16 is when it would go up for vote? Or when you look,
It would be, I mean, November's the next
November.
election. And when we first started, that's what we said, November, but we could say, I don't know, is there an election in April? I mean, I don't know what they're changing there.
I don't think there's an election in November either. It's an off year, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, we just need to have that conversation. Do you want me to put this on the agenda and have HDK or anybody come, or what are your thoughts?
So are we able to have a meeting where we invite the new members and
Well,
still
it'd just
have
be,
the
we wouldn't be
existing
deciding, I mean,
work
but
sessions
to
to
get input.
participate?
And
Okay.
so,
You're still on, what do you think?
Well, I'd say we definitely need to have that discussion soon. Do we need them here? I mean, are there questions or input that we need? Or is it
I-
really us deciding at this point?
Well, I think we need to, there may be questions that they have to answer, I don't know, on the scope of work. I don't think we're going to say we're going to do a $100 million project, so there may be something, but that's entirely up to you guys. I mean, they'll more than happy be here if we want them, but then we just need to make schedule a time, whether it's at a meeting or work session, the next work session or whatever. But,
Do we have anything large and time-consuming slated for the next work session?
I don't really think there is, but
You want to do next work session? Good with that?
work session
Yeah,
in
next
June?
work session.
Okay. And do you want me to have them here if you have questions, or?
I don't really think you
I
do.
don't think I need you here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we just need to decide
right.
what we want to do, so.
I think the question of that ought to be those members, because
Right.
I don't know if they've heard anything or know anything. I mean, they might, but
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of information out there.
yeah.
So,
Can we point them to most of that information that we've received up to this point prior to that meeting, if they haven't already?
Yeah, how much information do you guys have, I mean, from before? I think Elizabeth posted most of that on the web page, and we'll work on that and make sure you have all of that information then. Okay, we will do that. Needless to say, it's a very busy time. This Sunday at 3 o'clock is the high school graduation out at Gross Memorial. I think Marty says be there somewhere 2:40-ish, 2:45, and we'll meet where we did last year in that same room and walk in, and he'll review some of that.
I won't be here for that.
You won't be here? Okay. And then we have a board meeting then on the 18th, and the Learning Center graduation is at 6 o'clock just next door here, so put that on your calendar. And then we'll have the district retirement reception Thursday, May 21st at the Rose Garden. And if you haven't RSVP'd, let Sarah know. That's at 6 p.m. on the 21st, and we had quite a few RSVP already, so over 30.
32, I think.
So, yeah. So let her know. We'll have to make reservations and those things. And then Saturday, May 30th is the new board member training workshop at the Rose Garden. And again, if you haven't let Sarah know, please do if you're going to attend. And then the next negotiation session is May 20th at 5 o'clock in this room. A lot of stuff coming up. It's always a relief to get May over with. And, you want me to just go on?
Yeah, if you want to
Okay.
introduce.
Yeah. The next item then, we have Christy here from Assurance Partners, and she's going to give us an update on insurance coverage and some of the things that she has found out.
Good evening. We've developed your renewal options with EMC, so I have that information to present tonight, as well as an indication on the work for your workers' compensation. So I don't know if we want to completely go through that comparison. I can tell you what changes we negotiated on your behalf in the renewal with EMC. And that is, we increased your building values back to 100%. Last year, those values were reduced to a 90% coinsurance level in order to control costs or pricing. On that, we went back to 100% replacement costs so that we could recapture the agreed amount endorsement so that you would never be at risk of a coinsurance penalty for not having a building insured to 100% of replacement costs. So that's our preferable way to program insurance. It also makes it, from a programming standpoint, comparable with how the pool program is structured. However, it still then gives you a little bit of a difference between the values that you have in the EMC option at 100% versus the values that were quoted in the pool. Again, we knew at the time we were working with your expiring coverages and didn't know what your renewal coverages were. Then the other thing is the application of a $10,000 wind-hail deductible that was not previously in your EMC policy. EMC is requiring a $10,000 wind-hail deductible this year, so that's the other change. And then, just for confirmation purposes, we updated our illustration to include the sexual abuse and molestation liability coverage and confirm that that was in your expiring and is included in this renewal offer. So other than that, there are really no changes to the EMC program. So if we could go to the premium summary page. Any specific questions from any members at this point in regards to the coverage? We did, I'm going to have a handout here. We did make a last-minute update to our illustration on the premium summary page, just to make it a little bit easier to track with. So you can see the expiring package, which your package lines of coverage are at the top. Your expiring premium was the $153,000. The option that you've given your commitment to with the pool is at $120,000. With just the straight renewal negotiation, the EMC renewal, including commission for an agent, came in at $142,000. And as we indicated, we asked them to remove the commission, and you can see then that the EMC renewal comes in at $119,000. So again, very comparable to the rate structure of the pool. So where at a first glance, it might seem like everybody's question about how can the pool afford to have that kind of rate structure. Well, it's there with the standard carrier as well. Once you strip out commission, to have a little bit of coverage programming changes as well. But so that's the package comparison. So I'm pleased that you have good options at your renewal. So if by some chance the pool does not get approved by the state of Kansas, and I just visited with them today to confirm that right now there's really no outstanding requirements that they've made anyone aware of that would cause them to not approve the pool in Kansas. So again, while it's a matter of timing before that approval takes place, we're not receiving any indication that the state has any issue with it.
When will we know?
Well, we would hope to know anytime before the end of May. They had until like June 15th, but the state has indicated it shouldn't take that long. So again, we would hope to know by the end of May.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this.
Mm-hmm.
On the EMC expiring, the $153,582, so does that include what we paid to insurance partners last year? Insurance planning?
Yeah.
That is what we paid. Mhm.
Okay.
That was our
So that
premium.
includes our commission or whatever it was called to them? Okay.
Correct.
And then the $120,146 under the current renewal of the pool, that number includes the $20,000 that we pay to you?
Now, if you go down further, we add our fee and below under the workers' compensation.
Right, but you don't have workers' comp today, right?
Correct.
So I just wanted to make sure I understand on this other side of it,
Okay.
that we're comparing the same numbers. So with the pool, it'd be the $120,000 plus the $20,000 commission that we pay to you?
That's correct.
Okay. And then if we decide, if the pool falls and we end up renewing with EMC, we'd be paying the $142,920
No, you pay the
No.
119.
again, but if we included your commission with it, it'd be the 142?
It would be the 119 plus the 20,000.
Right, okay. Then, I'm sorry, what is the EMC renewal including commission?
We wanted to just illustrate, try and have an apples-to-apples renewal illustration of your expiring structured, including commission versus the renewal offer, and then remove the commission that was included there previously.
Okay, so, again, let me make sure I understand. EMC expiring, $153,000 included the commission we previously paid. Okay. With the pool, it'd be the $120,146 plus the $20,000, or $140,146.
Correct.
Okay. Then the EMC renewal with the commission would be $142,920. Okay. Those are the three numbers that make sense to me. Okay.
Yeah, so stripping out the commission that was in there was $23,307. That's the impact of removing that.
Okay.
So the savings to go from a commission with an agent to paying a fee-for-service basis was just over $3,000 in savings.
Christie, on the 153 for this year, EMC had overcharged Kansas districts, I don't know if all of them, but we got the $10,000 check from them. Does that include the 153?
No, we didn't have access to the amount of distribution for each district.
Okay.
And is that in regards to the workers' compensation? It's not a dividend for the work comp? It was a refund on the package?
It was, the way I understand it was EMC, when they figured rates, overcharged, and the way it was explained to me, several Kansas districts. And I think it was about $10,000 that we got back from.
Okay.
But that has nothing to do with that number. Okay.
No. Okay. Can we move on to the workers' compensation? All right. So last year, you moved into the Kansas Association of School Boards pool, and if I understand right, recognized some significant savings with that move into the pool. We have an indication from a carrier, so this would not be a pool option. This is separate of the KER MIP pool as well as the KASB pool for $190,000. Now, we had a little bit of information outstanding. It's not premium-bearing information, but again, in the interest of full disclosure, that I don't consider that a firm quote. However, I don't anticipate that it's going to change any, but we just had a little bit of additional information to get them, for them to formalize that quote and release it. So you do have an option for savings. It's our understanding that you have not received your renewal option yet from the KASB pool. That will go directly to the district. It won't come through us and things, but we wanted you to have another option.
No, that's a firm quote, or is that?
No, the 190, I would tell you, I was hoping to get an email on my way here.
Okay.
Not that I was checking my email and driving, but I was hoping to get an email confirming that they had indicated. We've given them the additional information they asked for, which was just some historical premium information, but I did not receive that formal quote from them.
And our pool commitment was only for a year?
KASB? Yeah.
And we've also pulled the agreement and taken a look at the exit, any exit barriers, if you will, and it's pretty open. It just says you have to give notice in writing. I think the struggle that you're going to have, quite honestly, is going to be to get them to release your renewal quote in a timely fashion so you can make an option to change if you don't like it. I think that's the struggle. So we'll be working with Tracy on a strategy to press them to release that renewal quote.
Is that a July 1?
It is. It is. So the next series of events is we'll firm up the workers' compensation quote, so that becomes firm. We should know hopefully by June 1 if the pool is approved in the state of Kansas and finalize that option as well. And hopefully by June 1 you would have received your renewal quote from the Kansas Association of School Boards pool and be able to make a decision and potentially recognize that savings as well.
So this doesn't need to be back on the agenda till June. I mean, you won't have firm numbers or anything until then.
And I can communicate with you on the steps in the process when we finalize the work comp quote and if we hear confirmation that the pool's been approved by the Kansas Insurance Commission. So I can communicate with you in real time on those things, but I don't anticipate having anything else. And really, I don't anticipate anything different for even your June board meeting. That's really up to having received your quote from the Kansas pool.
Christy, why such the big difference, the 190 with a carrier versus the 237 with KSB?
Well, I can tell you that I think I mentioned this previously, that in addition to the pool, Gallagher is also trying to put together a buying group for workers' compensation, again, to bring an option to districts. Because most either had their work comp with the EMC or were in the pool or had a standalone work comp policy. This carrier is one of the carriers that wants to be the carrier for that buying group. So I would tell you they're being very competitive to try and earn that business. The thing that we haven't really gotten into yet is to do analysis of the performance of your workers' compensation. So your experience mod can play a part in that. And also you have a $2,500 deductible right now, and this is rated with that deductible as well. So we'll be doing a deductible analysis and also some loss analysis to try and direct risk management services to workplace safety so we can hopefully reduce some losses and help manage your experience modification to be more stable.
Is that going to be a multi-year contract? Do you know?
It will not. This is a one-year standalone at this point. When they get the buying group put together, they may be able to do some things on a multi-year basis, but again, given the time frame that we were working in, that's not ready yet.
Did you say that had the deductible, same deductible?
Yes,
It does.
$2,500. Yes. Now, I would also anticipate KASB to behave very similar to EMC, because again, this information is a matter of public record. So if they determine what your option is, I would expect their pricing to come in very competitive.
Anybody else have any questions for Christy?
So, I think an overall savings of about upwards of $60,000. Not bad.
That's pretty good.
So, is there any other information that you'd like from us? I will mention, I should have mentioned this when we were talking about the property. There are two risk management projects also that we've identified. that we'll do in that regard as well. And one is a property assessment, and that's to make sure that we're certain that what's in the property schedule is all-inclusive. So we'll let you know if there's some property that hasn't been included in that schedule previously. So a lot of times what we find is a lot of expense in parking lot lights, fencing, equipment, things of that nature. So we'll do a property assessment, and our business analysts will come out and conduct that. And then should you go into the pool and that get off the ground, the pool over the next year will do a property valuation to make certain that our replacement cost on those buildings is adequate. I don't anticipate any significant changes there, but I do know that the pool intends to do that, which if I were you as a member, I'd want them to do that for everyone to make certain that everybody's adequately insured. So those are two other projects that we'll be tackling once we get through the renewal project. So,
Everybody good?
okay,
All right, thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Dean, do you want to introduce the pay to
Yes,
participate?
next we have our pay to participate discussion, and the high school obviously has their awards thing, and that's why there isn't anybody from the high school here this evening, but Bruce is going to walk us through some of this stuff, and then we'll ask some questions and proceed from there.
All right, Sarah and I put together some spreadsheets and graphs for you, and I contacted several of the people that we play and compete against to see how many of them were using pay-to-play, so to speak, fees, and huge variation in results. And you can see when on the bar graphs they're on the screen now, there's two different ones. One is the high school level, the second one is the middle school level, and it shows three things: the workbook or textbook fee, which is basically our enrollment fee, technology fee, then also a participation fee. It was tough looking at enrollment fees because so many different districts would have an art fee but not a technology fee, or they'd have a shop fee but not an art fee, so it varied a lot. So we tried to pull all the 4A schools that were as consistent with fees that we could find. So all the schools you see listed are currently 4A schools. We didn't list the WAC schools because all of them are either 5A or 6A. You can see obviously our total is quite a bit higher than everybody else we play. Some include participation fees and some don't. You can see the participation fees at the top, and it doesn't say whether the participation fee is an activity fee like we charge, where the kids just pay a certain money for a card to get into the activities, or if that's strictly a pay-to-play as in those that we're discussing, participating in a certain sport or activity. But you can see the sharp drop off after Hayes, and to me that just gives me more belief that we need to leave alone what we're doing now as opposed to drawing more fees that I don't think would be beneficial for our programs right now.
On the high school one, we're going to talk about fees next, and technology for high school. We currently have a $30 technology fee, and we'll have that discussion about increasing that to $50. So that does show, and then if you look at the middle school, it is $0. We're not talking about any K-8 technology fee because the devices won't be going home at those levels. I guess one of the other things that we talked about in detail was looking at number of participants and coaches. And what we've looked at then is using the guideline. In general terms, there's going to be exceptions to everything, but 10 to 1, we would see some coaching, number of coaches, assistant coaches decline then, which I think that is a good number to use. Now, we had these conversations before about golf. If they're using two different venues, you just can't have one set of kids with no supervision there. And they may not fit that criteria. Cross country may be another one if you have two different things running. But generally, and I think we'll see, obviously, then, have some parameters about how many coaches we'll have for each sport. And did I leave anything out
No,
there, Bruce? I think
The only thing I was going to mention is that I know a couple members of the Booster Club talked to me last week because they had heard from their coaching staffs about cutting coaches and were concerned about, again, some of the parameters we were setting. But one of the questions they brought up is, well, should we, as a Booster Club, then look to help fund additional coaches if needed, as opposed to using all the money for just the coaches' wish list? And so that's something I know that they're considering, because they're concerned, again, about not having, I guess, enough staff or personnel with their kids. And when I talked to Dean about this earlier about concerns with some areas, when I umpire ball games and I see teams only have one coach on a field and have kids in the coach's box, I think it's embarrassing and wrong. And I think it's a big liability factor. And I know I've had, again, constituents contact me about that. So where would the cut be? Would it strictly be 1 to 10? And I said, no, that's not what we're trying to do, because, as Dean mentioned, even if cross-country, if we have one person driving the car with the water and back and one coach running with them, riding with them, we have to have things covered. In golf, if Coach Watts has only 8 players allowed at the country club, then the JV kids have to go to the fort. We have to have a coach with them. And so there are obviously some variations to the parameters. One thing I mentioned about the fees, I mentioned we did not have the WAC schools on here, and this might, I guess I found it almost comical, but one of the schools we contacted, Dodge, for example, had enrollment fees of only like $30, but all of their fees are optional. And they collect fees from 20 to 30%. And I guess I kind of questioned about how smart were those 20 to 30% of people that are paying, but it was weird that their fees were optional. So we had a variation of 0 fees all the way up to what ours are at. Again, depending on the size of the town, what their LOB was, what their tax was, everything. So Sarah and I looked at it for a long time trying to decide what to give you and what not to give you, just because there's so much variation on the KSAB website. So hopefully this is enough information to satisfy what you're looking for.
Bruce, how do we compare number of activity-wise versus like an Atchison or an Abilene, Spring Hill?
Most of it's all very, very similar. The difference is some schools now, one of the bigger things now is some have swimming, some don't because of facilities, lack of facilities. Some of the big thing now is bowling. Wichita, Salina, Great Bend, all of them are adding bowling now, which we don't have. So, but as far as number of activities, we're pretty similar. There aren't very many things that one school has that's not offered. There's a few out there types like archery, things like that are offered in a few places, but not very many that are much variation because of the ones that are state levels, that have state competition.
So there wouldn't be any big difference, number of activity-wise, versus an El Dorado who charges $55?
No.
Versus us, who may have twice as many activities? We're pretty much the same?
Yep.
How did we arrive at the 10 to 1? I mean, to me, we can be 24 to 1 in the classroom, but we can't on the playing field. You can only be 10 to 1. What's the difference?
Well, the biggest thing is one. I don't want to say 1 to 1, but the ratio. If you have a quarterback, or instead of, let's use football for example. If you have backfield or skills people versus linemen, you can't have one coach coaching the 12 linemen plus the 12 backs. If you have baseball, you're going to have one guy's going to be working with the middle infielders, one's going to be working with the corners, one will be working with the outfield. So it's, whereas in the classroom, generally they're all doing the same lesson. You're also you're in one confined little area versus in a football field you could be at, people within 200 yards of each other. Whereas a classroom, you're in a 20 by 15 room. So a lot of it comes down to specialized instruction and also liability.
And Dean, you said the graph for the high school does not take into account any of the proposed fees that we're going to talk about next?
No, it doesn't have the.
We added, the graph shows $50 for technology fee.
Okay.
Currently, it's 30, but
okay.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the graph, though, the problem with our graph isn't as much as the activities and the technology, it's with the workbook.
Yep.
Other than 2 schools, our workbook fee outdoes everybody's entire fees.
Yeah.
The one thing I would recommend the board not get involved in is when you allow the booster club to start hiring coaches, they'll be your bill shortly. And that's what's happened before when we added them. When I got on the board, they wanted a freshman baseball coach, and they were going to pay for him, and they haven't done that for 11 years, I think.
We are not paying for that one?
No, we are.
Okay.
We as the district are, but the booster club started it, that they were going to pay for it. And quickly, the district always assumes those fees, and it's one of those things, if you're going to pay for it, you might as well. Did we ever go to any of the people in our middle school league, or to the league, and ask if any of those would agree to reduce sports?
The league that we're joining now? We had the discussion, and I guess the biggest discussion was last year when we were in the process of approaching them about forming a new league. And part of the problem, Greg, is that all of those schools have so much money. You know, the Dodge, Garden, Liberal. I mean, Liberal just passed a $127 million bond issue. Garden and Dodge have more money than they know what to do with. You know, they look at their facilities.
That also represents why they don't charge any fees, though, too.
Sure. But as far as them reducing,
We're trying to keep up with them
I know.
on what they're spending, but it's like you lose, or you get a pay cut, and you're trying to keep up with your neighbors in the neighborhood, and you can't afford it. Eventually, you're going to go broke. Or maybe the money comes and you get your money back. But I mean, that's, I think, where we're at, and that's why our fees are so high, is we can't afford all this stuff we keep buying, but for some reason, I'm not lecturing you, but I guess I'm lecturing the board, but I don't know how if you're broke, you can't afford to keep living how you did yesterday. You got to tighten your belt somewhere, and I don't think we've done it at all, or very little.
Is there any chatter with Dodge City and Liberal, with them switching to the block grants? Because I know I've talked to a number of the board members in Liberal, and I know they're in a more than $1 million deficit for next year. Is there anything they're looking at?
no, not as far as cuts.
And we've looked at everything on our end, and it makes sense with all of our sports, knowing that some of those sports have very few entrants, and what we pay per student to have that in there, it makes sense to still have those sports offered.
Which ones do we have a little
I
interest
just
in?
remember looking at some of the graphs that you guys had handed out before, whether it was,
Well, they would have been the middle school level because, I mean, our wrestling, we're like at 1-4, well, I'll give you, the difference is high school is like 1 to 8. In football, we're at 1 to 15. So our interest is still there. The high school level is, I mean, girls
one of them,
basketball.
I believe, was one of the tennis teams. We
I
had
think you're
when we
talking
were-
high school.
That was high school,
Yeah.
the boys.
It was high school.
The boys only had 9, I believe.
Dance team,
No.
we cut that this year. And then some of the others,
I can't remember, there were 2 or 3 of them that were
Yeah.
glaring as far
And-
as.
yeah, I.
Well, I mean, the
hate
one
to
was
say
girls
that.
basketball. We had, 24 with
Yeah,
5
that
coaches
a
was
matter
tough.
of
And
having the number of coaches there, and that'll be addressed. Swimming, tennis might have been another
one of them was
one.
tennis.
Yeah.
boys tennis was very low. I know last year it was 6, and this year it was 9. But middle school wasn't the case.
I just look at, I mean, we did this with busing, and, I'm not going to be here much longer, but, when we started, when I got here, we had 8 bus routes, and we were up to, I think, 13, and then we said, well, why do we have this? We have to have. And then we found out, well, we don't have to have them, and we cut 5 of them, right? Or is it 4 or 5, whatever it is.
I think 5.
Yeah,
by the
and
time it's
so-
all said and done.
And with the sports, I mean, if my kid plays sport X, I don't want that sport cut. And and we'll hear from whatever sport X is, but at some point, I mean, we didn't have all the sports we have 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So, and we added them, but we had money then, or more money, and we don't now. And something's got to give, I guess, but I will say too, if nobody wants to cut anything, let's move on, or add any fees.
Everybody's feelings?
What-
I would echo those comments. I mean, I definitely think we need to look at something, and that was the reason I brought up the stuff with some of those sports where there was such a high fee, or high, low student and high coach on some of those. And I mean, I don't know, at the end of the day, I mean, maybe we need to look at cutting some of those completely. I mean, like I said, that's, if money were not an object, we wouldn't be discussing this, but obviously it is. And like I said, at the end of the day, we'd love to offer every single sport we
Sure.
could to everybody, including the bowling and all the rest
Sure.
of the stuff, but we just can't do it. And I don't know how you make that decision as far as, which sport is more important than the other, but I think at the end of the day, we definitely need to at least look at some plans as far as removing some of those going down the line here. That's my opinion.
Well, do we need to set a minimum participation? And
What makes some of the sports so much higher,
Some of the sports.
price-wise, what makes them so much higher, if you're only transporting, like in tennis, for example, this year in tennis, we went to McPherson and Saline on Tuesday and Thursday, and each time only 6 kids go. So that makes tennis very expensive, especially if you're driving a bus. I mean, the bus or suburban either way, it's expensive. I don't know how many there are in swimming, but I know in tennis is so different in the sense that only, you may go 6 one time and 8 another time, but it's never your whole team, and we only have 20 on a team to start with.
But I guess using that as an example, and not to pick on tennis, just using that.
I'm not
sport,
either, it's just the,
As, if it comes down to it at the end of the day, and we decide, hey, you know what, we just can't fund tennis this year, how does that work with the league and everything else? I mean, does that affect the stuff with football and baseball and whatever your
well, it won't affect the
major
middle,
sports are?
it won't affect the middle school because the new league doesn't have tennis, but they have soccer, which is 60 kids. So we'll be sending 60 at a time as opposed to only 6. So then the price is lower because you're not transporting,
Sure. Two buses though, right?
yeah. You have one
Yeah,
boy,
so you
one,
got-
one boy's bus, one girl's bus. But the difference is tennis, you have 11 meets, only one of them is in Hayes. In soccer, you only have 7 matches and
But on
4 or 3 are here.
soccer, you could fix that too, though, by not sending every kid that goes out. You could,
Not really, because you have an A game, you have varsity and a JV of both levels, girls and boys. So you have 15 on varsity, 15 on JV, and there's a varsity game followed by a B game on both 2 fields. So all 4 teams will play every game, every time.
that's at 8th or middle school?
Mhm. You have 7th and 8th grade combined, gender separate, but combined by grade level. And you play on 2 fields, girls on one, boys on the other.
Take it this is a topic for the,
I think we need to look into it further.
for the,
Give it to the new board.
well,
Then figure it out.
Yep.
well, I guess let's have that conversation then, because, I mean, they don't start till July, and that's going to be pretty late to, or maybe it isn't.
Yeah, but no matter what we do, if they don't like it, they're going to have the ability to change it in July.
Okay, so let me ask, where do we want to put this? Do you want me to put it on the agenda or table it till a later time and have that discussion?
Put it on the July 1 meeting.
Okay.
It's the first meeting in July.
But there again, much like the bond discussion, if we could get them some information prior to
Right.
that first meeting.
I think they've been to most of these
Yeah.
No, I know.
already.
Holler if you don't have or
I think-
need information and.
But I think the fact on the information, though, is simply this. Here's what other schools are charging. I don't know that there's anything scientific that says if you charge it $1 more, it's going to drop participation by this percentage. I mean, there's speculation, but there's none that said, there's no data that goes either way. If you want to find articles that say it's not good, there's a bunch of articles that say if you raise the fees, it reduces participation, but if you read the article and read what they say, it's somebody's opinion about it. There's no studies that are contained within them that says, well, we studied this, and there's nothing out there to support it, so.
And the biggest discussion, that we had last time, again, it'll come up, will be, we don't know what'll happen if we put a fee in. Will the Booster Club truly not raise as much money? Will we have, and when you have parents that write checks for $400 because of the 20 gold cards, will they still do that if they're paying a $200 participation fee?
But isn't that it? I mean.
It's the unknown. We just have no idea.
That's a parent that's saying, well, I don't want to have to mess with going out and selling these tickets, so
Sure.
it's easier for me to just write the check than
Well,
it is to go out and have my kids go door to door.
Exactly.
That's- Makes a lot of sense to me. I'd probably buy the cars. It'd be much easier,
Yeah.
but the problem with a lot of that is the people I've talked to that have kids that have played, because it's not just that parent that's going to have the kid in, it's the parent that's got the kid in, that owns the business, that donates
Sure.
the things to all the auctions and everything
Yeah.
else, or whatever the donations.
Yeah.
And those people I've talked to, I said, if you had to pay $25, $50, or $75 per sport, would that have any effect? And the answer, pretty much universally, is no. We'd still continue donating this item to that or that item to that. And so that's the question, you know. I mean, there are going to be those people that don't have money at all that it's going to be tough for, but there's simpler solutions for that problem as well. Anyway, July 1.
July 1 it is.
All right, we will put that on July and go from there then. Now, when we talk about fees,
Dean, hold on.
Dean,
sorry.
I just had one thing. Marty and I wanted to thank Bruce and Chris and Sarah for all their time
They did.
and work. They put in a lot of time to get all this information. And with the middle school sports, one thing I'd been talking to Bruce was, it still resonates with the closure of Kennedy a few years ago. We were really dug in that we did not want to cut the opportunities of kids. And the board kept saying, whatever we can do at the middle school level, if we combine, we can't eliminate the opportunities of kids. So as we're looking at that, that's one of the things I keep reminding Bruce and Chris is the opportunities of kids since we combined.
But this, I mean, I've heard that argument, but by closing Kennedy, we have now just one starting quarterback.
Well,
We have a 7th grade, but in 8th grade, you only have one starting quarterback. And when we had Kennedy, we had 2. And so this, I mean, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but you just don't, I mean, you're not adding.
and this was just what the board at that time, and Greg, you were there, said, we do not want to cut the opportunities of kids if we go to one building.
There's still the intramurals program at the middle school, right?
No.
No?
That was the trade-off.
the
Yeah.
7th grade sports, it eliminated the intramural program.
There's still the intramural program.
That's the trade-off.
There's still the intramural program in the homerooms, the teacher advisory period, but what you're talking about was the instructional league. We eliminated the instructional league that had basketball and volleyball. We eliminated that, but we still have intramurals during our homeroom session in the morning before school, before first hour.
What was the trade-off cost-wise in that? Because I remember, I was actually sitting out in there.
It wasn't even
Those
comparable
seats.
because instructional league was just playing within our school.
Yeah, it was all, there was no travel,
No,
no uniforms.
No, there was very little coaches. There was just a couple college kids per sport helping out, and there was no officials, so it was not comparable. It was just one of those things that, we.
well, again, thanks, Bruce, and I know I got him up early a few mornings. And
Thank you.
so.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
On our fee and meal pricing discussion, let's start with Jessica, if you want to come up and talk about recommendation for meal pricing.
After looking through all the federal requirements and stuff, we are still short of where we are supposed to be based on the free reimbursement rate. Where our average weighted price is supposed to be $270, and right now we are at $258, which means we have to raise our prices, or the district has to supplement the food service fund. I'm recommending option 1, which is the minimum price increase to be basically the less minimum burden on parents, which is 5 cents for elementary and 10 cents for middle and high school, leaving the breakfast prices and the adult prices the same. There's some other options there, but that would, either way, we're going to have to raise our prices again next year, because I kind of figured it out, if our participation is the same. So it's just a matter of, to get up to where we need to be, and then we'll just stay in line with the reimbursement
So that
rates.
keeps, this basically takes us to the average of 265, but we're still technically short of where it needs to be, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. The only way to not be short of where we need to be is increasing 15 cents, which is, I don't particularly want to do that all in one year. I'd rather
So what does it cost
space
us
it out.
if we don't? What are we losing out, or what is our difference if we're not increasing to that this year?
If we don't increase it, or if we don't increase it all, the district would have, that's option 4, the district would have to supplement the food service fund with $15,000.
So by doing your increase that you're recommending?
That's the minimum to where the district doesn't have to put in money.
Jessica, on How come we're not raising the adult prices?
Because they don't have to be, I guess.
That-
I mean,
I'm
that covers the meal cost by, 25, 30 cents, so we're still, I mean, it covers our cost, and, the adults are good, we want them to be happy, I guess.
So the increases you have, the 5 cents on the elementary, 10 on middle school, 10 on high school, those are basically mandates.
Right.
Otherwise, we start paying in.
Right.
Um,
And we don't necessarily, it's been shown, especially breakfast and adult, that, when we raise our prices, our participation goes down, and we really count on that adult participation and the à la carte, the extra stuff beyond just the regular student meals to keep us in the black.
Have you seen adult participation go down every year we raise it? Because I'm looking at this. I eat your school lunches all the time. You can check my account. But
We appreciate that.
$3.50 for the meal I get, and any adult that walks in, that's a steal. You couldn't get that same quality for under $10. Easy.
I agree. Unfortunately, we get complaints, and we have seen it go down from the last couple of years that I've been here.
Do we do a push to get adults to eat with their kids?
They do send it out in newsletters and stuff. I mean, I think sometimes there's not enough room, so there's limits on, because some parents would come 3 times a week if they could, so it just depends on the school. But, I mean, we always promote it, we always welcome them, but it's kind of up to the principal if it's
James,
all the
if we
time.
open this to the public, we might be able to make some money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, could we open up a new cafeteria here?
Drive-through in?
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
you're all welcome
You
to
do
come
drive-through?
anytime. I'll gladly eat lunch with you.
I mean, what we're recommending then is that option 1, the 5-cent increase on elementary and 10 cents on middle school and high school. What,
I guess to answer your question, the adult cost has to cover the reimbursement total, and right now, we are covering that by a lot. So we're just kind of trying to stay in line with all the other districts that we, I guess, compare with, as far as all of our prices across the board. So next year, adult and breakfast prices are going to have to go up to maintain that, be above the reimbursement rate, so those aren't supplementing.
I think, to me, it's always been difficult when in the past we've come and raised kids' prices, which is the whole reason we're here, is to take care of the kids, and left the adult prices the same. So, that's...
Well, I mean, we don't have to, but if y'all think we need to, I can come up with some other options.
Well, at $2.30 and $3.60, which is just to keep in line with what we're raising the kids, I mean, if 10 cents or 20 cents a day is going to stop you from eating lunch here, better be careful when you go through the fast food line. They go up quicker than that usually, so.
How much would you have to change the adult lunch price, given your adult numbers, to make up the difference? Try to leave the elementary or the...
Well, we can't leave the lunches the same. I mean, this year, in like our state, if I didn't have to raise them, I wouldn't. But since we do, we have to raise, my recommendation was the minimum. But I don't know, I just know that the adult participation goes down, and we really count on those teachers and those parents. We want to invite them to eat because they are good meals. They're, and when adults are eating with the kids, it's just a good role model, So we do encourage that.
do you want to see another option then with that increase in adult
Yeah,
prices?
number of adults that come as well, because if we made it an option when we did enrollment to sign up for a food pass, I think a lot of parents would lay down the 20. I think it's coming up with $3.50 in exact change every time I walk in. if we raise it 360, it's a lot easier just to put $40 on the account every so often.
Well, don't you have an account?
Huh?
I mean, don't you have an account as
I
a
do.
parent?
Yeah.
So
I
anybody
created
can
one.
have an adult
I
account.
don't think most parents know that that's an option.
Oh,
the
okay.
account, 'cause-
So we can promote that?
Yeah, that
Is that what you're
hindered me.
saying?
I'll be honest, I'm lazy. That hindered me to try to come up with $3.50
Yeah.
every time. But when I figured out that there was an account that I could just write a check for and then keep going through the line, it made it a lot easier to show up.
Right. That makes sense.
But our goal with raising the adult price would merely, I mean, would we be doing that in lieu of bringing,
No.
okay.
I mean, that would just be in addition
So
to,
what are we trying to do? What's our goal?
But you're saying regardless, next year, if we wouldn't.
regardless,
if we-
next,
What if we raised it this year, though, then would the raise have to be there next year?
then I would, I mean, I could,
I'm
I mean, it doesn't have to raise this year. Next year it will. So we could do it this year and not next year. I mean,
It's gonna be going up
it's-
regardless, one-
It's going to be
one or
going
the
up
other.
regardless, correct.
Right, so on the prices then, elementary, middle school, high school increase, and then what did you say, 10 cents on breakfast as well as lunch, or?
Yeah, that would be my proposal. That's what I said.
And I would like to see the trend too. Do you have those numbers pretty available? Where you could see number of adults that eat per year in the
I
schools
can-
for the last 5 years, just total number?
Yeah, I can find
But-
something.
But what I'm struggling with is, you're self-funded, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to raise these prices in order to get the funding federally.
Right.
So us increasing the adult prices is merely to add more funding, add more money to an already funded program. So how can we justify that?
You got to look long-term. What's an oven cost or a deep freeze?
An oven's about $7,000, I think is what we did this year. Steamer's
Do you have a need for
15,000.
replacement equipment?
What?
Do you have a need for replacement equipment?
Yes. Always.
Yeah, Rusty's nodding his head
Well,
pretty
I
hard
think-
back there.
I mean, as my understanding is some of those fees can be used outside of there.
Not
Oh, you've got-
anymore. I
What
mean,
about your people running lunch tickets?
oh, that stuff, we're doing that now. Yeah, I think we're taking everything we can out
Yeah.
now that we could, so, yeah.
We purchase all the equipment and all the, I mean,
Yeah,
everything
they,
that's food
everything that
service.
goes with their program is taken out of their budget now. Yeah.
Even adult lunches though? Can't come out?
It's all part of the food service budget, yeah. Well, we will have that, obviously, the meal prices on the agenda with that other option as well, and bring that back Monday.
With the numbers of how we're trending now with
Yeah.
adult lunches, I mean, let's see how much that would generate, because if it's pennies, I don't see.
Yeah, that'd be easy.
But if it could pay for a brand-new oven
If it
every year.
could.
You'll never get it if
I
you
don't know.
don't.
And then the other fees,
Okay.
if you want to pull that up, Shanna, on what we're proposing is, I mean, workbook material fees, $160 is where we currently are. High school technology fee, we're recommending we increase that $20 if machines are going home, devices are going home, which that's the plan, to help fund any damage and those things that would increase to $50. Activity fee remain the same, driver's ed, summer school, we had already set that before, but that's the proposal for high school. Middle school would remain the same. Elementary, again, would remain the same. They do not have technology fees at those two levels. Give me your input and we will come up with a plan, if that isn't what you want.
The technology fee, the $50, do we know what machines or where we're headed yet, Brian? I mean, if we're going to raise
Yeah,
at
but
$20, do we
let's
know?
just keep going through the thing though, because if not, we're gonna get way off.
Okay.
Let's just, because that happened last time, let's just stay on track.
So the fee should have come after the technology talk?
It's a proposed fee, right? I mean,
Might as well just come up, you're part of the next one.
well, it's a proposed fee. I mean, that's just what it is, right?
Okay.
We're proposing a take-home fee on top of the technology fee. I think, don't get wrapped up in it right now, because I think there's probably a lot more to discuss.
Oh, so it would be 50 plus a take-home fee.
It's 30 right now, currently.
It's 30
It's
now.
30 and be going to 50. But like I said, I recommend you don't get wrapped up in that until we talk about the other parts.
I think what you need to do on it is take the cost and spread it out. So if it's $500 for a machine, then it's $125 a year. And at the end of the 4 years in high school, you own it. You're going to take a lot better care of that piece of equipment if it's yours versus if it's one that you got to get rid of every year. Because the beauty of it now is you turn it in and then you get a new one or a different one back. And so, yeah, that's my proposal, for at least the high school. I think there needs to be a technology fee at the middle and elementary as well. It's 1-to-1, so I don't know why you just did the high school kids for it.
Do we need to move on to the technology plan? Because I know some of this is in there. On the next item?
Well, what's in there is the $20 high school and not at the other two levels. And I think at the last time we talked on technology, I thought that's where we were headed, was not having the fee at the elementary and middle school, but that's why we're here, to discuss that and come up with what your thoughts are.
So the only change in the fees is the $20 increase for the technology fee, from what we previously discussed.
Correct.
Okay, at the high school.
I just think you're going to have, I think you either need to have it or you don't have it. If you're not going to have, I don't know what's the difference at the high school if they're taking them home. I thought that's all counted into the cases and everything else. Wasn't that? And the insurance?
Well, I think it's a big difference. I don't know why we would be charging kids to use technology in the classroom.
We're charging high school.
No, we're charging the high school. We're charging the high school for a fine laptop they get to take home and
But they're supposed
keep all
to
year.
take it home. They don't keep it all year, they just keep it during the school year.
Well, they keep it all the school year.
I just think we either need to be one or the other, because you're also talking the middle schoolers are going to start taking them home. Do you start taking them that?
We could look at a fee across the board, which we had talked about, and then when we started talking about all of our fees, is that something that we really needed to do if they weren't going home? So we're not married to any of that, so.
Do we want to move on to the next one? Because I think a lot of this will be explained in the technology plan.
Yeah, we can, so. So Brian, Shanna?
You'll hit hard on the fees and why you post 50 versus 0?
I'm good with whatever you guys want to do with fees. It's really, you tell me what you want to see and I'll put it together. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. Are we coming down here? Well, I'm not going to stand there.
You got to be loud, Brian.
Isn't this thing on?
Basically, these are not, this is just an overview of looking at it different ways, but who's in charge of which piece, kind of putting it all together. We do want to note that we plan to develop a digital learning committee, and if you look at the plan we're submitting to the state, we felt like we need a working committee. Instructional tech specialists will steer that and help facilitate some of these areas, but wanted to outline that. And then this basically is the tech plan in the format that we need to submit it to KSDE. Every school district does. It asks about board-approved policies, that's a big piece, and then that there is a tech committee, a standing tech committee. And then basically the mission, the vision, the summary of the progress we've made since the last plan was submitted, then the technology needs assessment, and then we dive into infrastructure, curriculum, professional development. And each of those, there are goals, and then an explanation of the goals, and then how we're going to measure those goals. So again, it's a lot to read to you, but if you haven't had a chance to look at it, this is what we will be asking you to approve so that we can submit it to the state. A lot of it was pulled from the digital learning plan, things we've already talked about. It's just in a different format. There's the PD piece.
So you said there is measurements in there to see how far we've come since the last technology plan was implemented to now?
Well, there is actually, in our last tech plan, there were some measures that were in there, but I don't know if anyone ever looked at them. And so we just had put in the district summary of our progress. We just reflected, we looked at the plan that was submitted 3 years ago, and then just basically summarized without an ongoing work of a committee, reduction in staff and budget. We felt like the goals were not sustainable from the last plan. But that's the piece that we reflected more in a narrative form. Our previous plan is still on our website until this one becomes official if you want to look at that. But then for each of the, like the infrastructure goals, then there's a narrative description of them, and then how we're going to evaluate them. So there's a piece like curriculum integration, the goals are listed, then a little narrative of that, and then here's how we're going to evaluate a bullet list. So that's the format for those big 3 areas that the state asks us to identify. Here's the PD with our goals, the narrative, and then our measures. And then there was a piece on the E-rate, and then some of the budget. We have to submit our budget for the tech plan as well. And that's the piece that goes to the state. Any questions on that piece? That's the piece that will be on the agenda for next week to vote. And then we just added a few other, this was the professional development plan timeline. We talked about this before. Brian spent some time talking about the IT department, the implementation plan, how he sees it rolling out here over these summer months that are going to be busy. And then there was the digital learning plan, which you all have seen already and actually approved. And then we felt like one of the things, the pieces you asked for is how will this look at each of the levels. And so Hayes High, we've included their checkout procedure, the guidelines, kind of the rules, practices, of day-to-day usage with the use policy. And then there was an iPad one we felt was useful K-8, not that it won't continue to be tweaked a little bit. Were you going to add anything?
No.
Those were the support materials, and then Brian also included, well, I guess we have the...
Well, it's an updated Apple quote with the services that they've added into addition to our purchase. So they sent us over an updated quote to reflect that, so they could process that in the order, which includes, I did a breakdown of that, of project management, being able to come on site, help us put together the Apple and deliver the Apple implementation plan. They do this every day, across the United States, so they have people trained. They're really wanting to bite their teeth into our district to make sure we do this right. And we got some pre-deployment technical engineer, some help on any technical issues as we're working through the project manager on the implementation plan. On-site caching servers just to kind of offload some of that traffic that would be going through the App Store, iOS updates. So it's not actually going out to the internet, staying more internal. Post-deployment technical engineer kind of help us with anything that we ran across, that we are running across. And then they're giving us a full year of Apple Care OS support. So.
Hey Brian, just a quick question. On those caching servers, will we have any additional cost involved? Or
no, we already have.
Are we able to use the?
We already have them. We're using Profile Manager right now as our tool to manage. So we already have them in place.
Will we have any insurance from Apple on the iPads?
And now you'll have their standard warranty, but other than that, then no.
Because on the student iPad policy, and then you have the high school laptop policy, how does that work? Because in the iPad policy, it basically states if it's accidental, we'll cover it the first time, second time, they start picking it up. Is that right?
If it's not accidental, we're saying the district's going to pick it up. If it's due to neglect or intentional damage, then it's 100% on them regardless. So in there, it states that it's district is assuming responsibility of anything accidental, and student parents responsible for anything that's not accidental.
First time, or?
Just in general. I mean, if it's
So
deliberately
if they accidentally
damaged.
drop it 5 times, we're going to cover it?
Well, I think if you look in there, we have a thing about repeat offenders and repeat occurrences. Right, we'll be taking a look at those.
Yeah, it's on this, right under the damaged or malfunctioning devices, third paragraph. It's accidental damage, however, the vendor repeated incidents, the school parent student will develop an action plan, obviously intervene at that point, and then the next part talks about intentionally damaged, neglect, it's going to be back on the student.
And that's a very thorough document. I guess my question is, where does the initial money come from for the first, I don't know, what do you think, maybe 20 will get dropped in a year out of 2,700 of them, or how many did we buy?
I don't know what that, I mean, we're taking a guess, right? We were going to set aside what we currently use for computer, what was it, I think it was $10,000?
Right.
What we were setting aside for those repairs.
Right, on the budget for next year, and maybe you want me to go over that in detail, but we did have 10,000 budgeted next year and every year after for self-funded K through 8 repairs, and we thought we'd analyze that as we go.
Now, obviously, if we start running into a problem, we're going to have to reassess that plan, but I don't think we're going to run into those issues with the cases that we're looking at.
Well, has Apple advised you or someone on that? I mean, I think we're just going.
Well, and that's the other thing. You know, just to kind of let you guys know, we were going full force ahead on cases, and then Apple with the services that they've put into our quote at no cost, they've asked us to pull back a little bit on the cases because their implementation engineers would like to talk to us about what's worked in other districts, what to stay away from, what they've seen that's been really good, what's not, before we send out an RFP for cases and buy a slew of cases that we might not. We've heard some mixed reviews about some stuff we have in the district. So our sales engineer and our engineer they don't have that experience, and they asked us to kind of hold off until we get with that team. So we'll be having those conversations with them in the coming weeks.
And then the high school, the 50 is going to pay for the first drop or damage, and then after that, it's self-funded as well?
I think we're
by the
getting
student?
So the high school's a draft. We really didn't know what we were going to be doing at the high school until Friday, today. So that's an example draft of what we thought it would look like. We're trying to do that with Marty, put that together with his staff or his administration team, that based on what we know now. And that's why it goes into the next thing. So I think we need to get to the next bullet, and I think it'll kind of, that's going to need some tweaking depending on your guys' response to the next bullet.
And Tracy, that was, you were setting aside $10,000 a year
Correct,
for the deal, so, okay.
correct. For K-8, self-insured repairs, yes.
And then none for the high school?
Well, are we still thinking about the
I
accidental
think
protection?
once again, just hold.
Yeah.
Hang on. There's been some, it's been a roller coaster, right? But just bear with me for a few more minutes, and let's get through this, and then you'll see why we'll probably need to go and readdress the high school.
Okay. I'm just saying, we've got everything on the iPads, but the high school, we don't even have what we want to use yet.
We're good. We're close.
Okay.
We're minutes away from. I mean, it's that thing. There should be like a little countdown thing in the corner of the screen.
Are there any questions then about just the tech plan or the support materials we've provided? I feel like outlines pretty good support of those things before Brian jumps into the recommendation for the high school.
We will have the tech technology plan on the agenda that has to be approved to send into the
The
state.
state
But
plan.
that'll be an action item. And then Brian will get into the next piece on devices and costs and financing and those things, so.
So,
Any-
I'm sorry, just back on our, the digital learning plan under evaluation. There's a lot of good detail here. Are we at a point where we can put some timelines on some of this? When we could expect to have some results on
On the
all
digital
the,
learning plan?
I'm sorry, we keep going,
As
our
far-
digital learning plan.
Those same measures are outlined in the state.
Oh, in that one?
KSDE
Okay.
plan, so they're not different.
I'm sorry, the page I'm on now is the one that,
We probably will spend this, before we start implementation, getting that baseline.
Okay.
And that's what that committee will do, is making sure that they're looking at that, and then we can continue to bring reports. That's how we envision that tech committee, that digital learning plan committee working.
okay. So we would first have a report when?
Well, do you want to see our baseline, or do you want to see implementation and growth? Because if it's going to be, we could share as we gather the baseline data, share where we're at, but then we'd probably be looking, if we want to look at true implementation, by a semester or the end of the 9 weeks, in the fall is what we
Okay.
could start looking at.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could put, baseline done by the
Sure.
state, and then, or is that in there? And then, first status update in
It
the first
doesn't
9
have
weeks or
spec-
something like that.
It doesn't, that's really up to you, when you want, as often as you
Okay.
want to see it, we can present it.
Because given the amount of money that we're spending on this, and given the timing of that spend, when we have these other needs, and you guys have done all this work to create this, very comprehensive digital learning plan with a lot of detail, I don't want to lose sight of that as we get going into next year.
Right.
And I think, especially hearing Greg talk, who's been on here for so many years and has gone through these technology purchases before, it was never appropriately tracked on the back end, and we were not able to appropriately evaluate the use of that technology. So I don't want to lose sight of that. So if we could select some evaluation dates now and know when that status update is coming.
Sir, I think you don't need to go to my experience. I think you can go to this board, everybody that's on here, we've got a plan from last year that we don't have any, that wasn't, there were measurements in that haven't been followed through, but hopefully this one's different.
That's why we felt like having that digital learning committee that works and functions every, that isn't just, we don't just appoint a tech committee when it's time for a new lease, that it actually is a working committee where this is the data that they would oversee and help steer. But we definitely can outline the timeline of measures, or look at different agenda board meetings to bring it to you and share.
Sir, I think that's something that would be great for your board retreat after July 1. But I think if you don't set your dates, they're not, it's, if you know that they're going to happen on this date and that date, then they're expected, and they happen. If you don't, then
And I mean, you could also,
May not.
you could already be creating your presentation outline, with these evaluation bullets. I mean, these are
No, just update.
your titles of each slide, Easier said than done, I know, but if we put a date, we know what we're all marching towards.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions?
So you'll add the timeline to that then?
Yeah, yes, we can bring that back to you, or send it with the materials. Okay, was it a Word document? No,
It was the Excel.
which one do you want?
Well, let's go with desktops first. So we sent out the RFP for Windows devices. And James, I think this is where you've been heading for a while. Just bear with me while we get to these. We sent out we have a need for desktops still. We have a lab at the two labs at the middle school, or 3 labs, potentially 3 labs at the middle school, two labs at the high school with Windows. We sent out the RFP. We got these responses back for the desktops.
sir, they were emailed.
That was the email
At
from Friday.
5:40.
It's not,
No, it's not.
okay, hold on. Give me a second.
Which one are you under right now?
RFP attachments.
Desktop devices?
Yeah.
All right.
So they all came, I mean, they're all pretty similar, meeting requirements. There's no questions about that across the board. However, I want to say that the recommendation from the tech committee is going to be the Lenovo C50. And that's going to be based on, it's an all-in-one, it's touchscreen, it's a 23-inch unit. It's got more horsepower in terms of RAM, memory, hard drive than the other ones responded back with. We could definitely find out from the other ones on that more horsepower, but for the cost, I think it puts us into the position we want to be in moving forward with the student devices and the teacher devices and the touchscreen, the moving of everything, not so many pieces and parts. Like I said, everything else was responded back with a 21-inch monitor. Everything includes the price of the monitor except for the second one, the Lenovo CTE73. I think that there was a separate quote on that when I put that together that I didn't get put back in, but it's going to be around the same price, the 725, 730 range. And then we have the 2 HPs, and then the other Lenovo.
Are any of these on state contract?
No, these would be through, like the Lenovo C50 was bid by Microsoft out of Overland Park store. Like I said, the thing we like about that, and I myself like about that, is we get a lot more bang for the buck with that machine for those labs that we can future-proof that a little bit more with the Windows 8 touchscreen. Some of those features, are they necessary? I'm not going to lie, they're not necessary, but it makes the user experience of Windows 8 that much easier when you have a touchscreen to run it with. So
that's the only one that offers that touchscreen?
Yeah, the rest of them are standalone monitors, a standard 21-inch widescreen monitor.
What's your second choice?
If I had a second choice, I'd probably go with that M73 or the E73. We've had a few of those in the district so far this year. They seem to be good machines. I guess that goes back down to, in my opinion, $75, you're getting double the memory, a lot more hard drive space, and you're getting the touch screen. So it seems to be a lot more feature rich and built for the future. But I also understand that.
Is there anything about the 5 of them that's non-complying with the RFP?
There is not. Besides the one that we did not get a monitor sent with, but I think that was just a mix-up, and they didn't. It was supposed to get delivered, but it didn't get delivered. It didn't get sent out, but the monitor was kind of, irrelevant. A 21-inch monitor is a 21-inch monitor. We did get a quote for it, and I can update that sheet.
And I'm sorry, how many of these are we talking about?
Oh, hang on. We're talking about probably around 28 at the high school and 80 at the middle school.
And these are the teacher ones?
No, these are just
What are these?
the lab desktops.
Lab, sorry.
And you don't have to do the math now, because when we get to the math, you'll see it. We got it all kind of broke down as it goes. We can go to, is there any questions on this?
How come the 21-inch monitor? That's pretty good size, isn't it? 23?
Well, we standardized a 21. Well, we standardized a 21-inch monitor, mainly for your AutoCAD, your people doing labs. These labs are mainly going to be used by the AutoCAD journalism media type classes, right? I just felt that it was time to kind of get them into the screens that let them work, right? Multitasking. They're doing editing, video editing, photo editing.
Judy, how big of monitors do you guys have at the Hayes Daily?
Not really that big.
I was just curious, because that's what they're going to see in the real world. Sorry. I understand that we want the biggest and best, but, Bill, I got a question. What we're proposing here doesn't even meet the bid laws, does it?
Well, there are RFPs, we can accept the lowest and best bid.
Mhm.
So we can take into account the different specifications on each bid.
I'm not sure I follow that then. I thought we just sent out one RFP. What's the difference then, I guess, that makes one better than the other?
The C50 was submitted with much more memory and hard drive, bigger monitor and the touch screen. So that's what sets that one aside from the others.
These are touchscreen desktops?
Are they all in ones? What
That
happens
one
when the
is.
monitor goes out?
I mean, what happens when another monitor goes out? I don't have an answer to that. I mean,
Well, I mean, if you have it, they're separate, when the monitor goes out, you replace it. If it's all one, you don't have a computer.
no,
Anyway.
it's teaches their own, right? I mean, like I said, they all meet the specs. I'm not partial to one over the other. I think the C50 is a lot better, bigger machine for the return, but that's my opinion.
It'll last 4 years?
We got some that have lasted 8. I mean, I'm assuming, yeah, we'll be fine. I don't, the plan is to run them as long as we can, and with those specs, I think we can run them for a while.
Is there any other school districts running that model?
I haven't called, been able to get a hold of Microsoft to ask any other school districts that are using that model. So I think we go to, are we good on this?
Yeah, let's keep moving, then we'll hash it out at the
Then
end.
we'll circle back. Let's go to student devices. So here's our student devices that were sent in for the RFP. Technically none of them had a rear-facing camera that we really wanted. We found we wanted to have as a feature of it. Other than that, they all stacked up pretty well against each other. There were some differences that were submitted on the alternative devices that they didn't include the solid-state drive. We'll just go through them one by one. The Yoga 11E was a Celeron processor, not a solid-state drive, but other than that, and then didn't have a rear-facing camera. The Asus i3 4030, same deal. That needs to be changed on the 2.4 gigahertz to 5 gigahertz. It does meet that specification after talking with them. Same thing, hard drive, camera, and then it didn't have an Ethernet port. The Ethernet port wasn't a deal breaker. It's just one of those. We've never imaged without using an Ethernet port, so it was one of the things we wanted to put on there because we don't know how. We didn't want to eliminate something because we didn't know how to image it. The Asus 5010, same deal. It does have the dual band client in it. No solid state drive, no rear camera. Didn't have Ethernet. The HP 11G1EE Celeron processor. Other than that, it seemed to meet the specs except for the rear camera. HP 210G1 seemed to meet all the specs, no rear camera. HP 4030, kind of the same deal. And then we have the Surface 3. So Microsoft released their new product, the Surface 3. They responded with that. It's set to release sometime this month. They sent us a demo unit of it as well, so we've been playing with that. And once again, it is an Atom processor, doesn't have an Ethernet port, and then their display, they have a display port, and then you can put an adapter to it. So as we look through the devices, we found ourselves asking the same, kind of going back to the K-8 iPad initiative. what are we trying to do, right? We didn't think Surface was going to be in play for us to even to entertain. With the Surface 3 and them throwing in the keyboard with that price, that's a 64 gig model. We felt as a tech committee that that would be the tech committee recommendation. And with that, James, for your insurance, we would treat this similar to, I've been making phone calls for the last couple days. We would treat that similar to the iPad. We would do a self-insure, find a company that we could warranty, send repairs to. It's really no different than an iPad. I mean, it's fully encased. I was going to bring it, but I left it at his side. But I mean, Lance has one right there. They don't got a lot of moving parts. There's not a lot to repair. If it breaks, it's going to be broke. I mean, more than likely you're talking a screen. Keyboard, magnetic keyboard, they put the keyboard in the cost of that. From the committee standpoint, alternative solution, that would be the recommendation that we're recommending to go with. And if not that, we'd need to dive into the insurance of the HP 11G1 and the HP 210G1, or no, HP 210G1 and the HP 430, and find out what those are. From a cost perspective, they don't meet our budget very well, so that was kind of one of the reasons why we're not recommending those.
Do you need to, as far as, is that something that the tech committee or you guys talked about as far as do you need keyboards for all of them? Due to the fact that it's an option?
With the education pricing, and don't quote me on this because I'm getting this for sure from, it's included in the price in the education. The keyboard's just, it's a part of that device.
Okay.
For the education.
64 or 32?
Huh?
64 or 32?
I believe both. I did get a price, so I don't, Bill can shed some light on this, but they can provide a price on the 32 gig model if that's what we choose to look at. But they responded back with the 64 gig model.
And what size was the monitor on those? Was it this size or?
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. It's I think it's a 10 and a half.
Okay.
So and it's got the flipping over keyboard, Gorilla Glass. I mean, it's like I said, it's exactly kind of what Lance has right there. We tested the Celeron, the 11E, pretty extensively. Didn't feel it had the oomph that we would need it to have at the high school level. It was a little sluggish at times and wasn't the optimal performance when doing our testing. So.
Can you elaborate any on the testing?
Just some of the testing we did just right out of the box was just screen responsiveness, how long it takes you to open something up with the touch screen and the Windows world. We just didn't find it as responsive as the Surface. Now the Asus is a touchscreen as well. It seemed to be a little bit more responsive, but durability seemed to be a question mark there. The screen, the back and forth, and it's kind of one that flips all the way back, and it seemed like it was pretty loose. So from a durability standpoint, we didn't feel like that would be at the top of our list for a recommendation to the board. So.
Why didn't we look at iPads here? Because this is the Surface, the Surface.
They did look at iPads. They did the pilot of iPads out there back in November. They felt that the iPad did not fit their needs out at the high school.
But isn't the Surface just an iPad?
It's Windows based.
But it's,
right,
but it's, take the platform away, it's the same device, isn't it?
It's very similar. Very similar.
I mean, that's Microsoft's competition for the iPad, right?
Yeah. So that's where we're at on the student devices. Like I said, on the Surface 3, there is a little bit more expense to them, but what we're proposing is we take the expense and we don't buy the accidental damage protection, and we do a self-insurance claim. Same thing like we're doing K8 iPads. We do something along the line. First one, set up some criteria that makes sense for that. That tech fee we collect, that could be used to start that. There's various other things that we could do. We just felt that it was, if there's a repair to fix it, we think there's going to be, I feel there's going to be more, they're not going to be better care taken care of, but I think there's going to be a lot more thought maybe into the process of, I dropped it, I broke it. I'm in the process of looking at cases as well for those. Like I said, we didn't know that this was even going to be in play, So we've started doing our research and making the phone calls and making sure that those same things in the iPad world are available in the Surface world. So there we have the student devices, or I guess we shouldn't use the word laptops, devices. We can go to staff.
On the students, how many students do you need them for?
820.
How many extras are you gonna have?
Haven't gotten.
Because if you get one, if somebody breaks the screen and shatters.
My plan is to not really give out a new Surface when one's broke. If you break it, it's more like you might be getting one of the HPs while that one's in for repair. I don't know if we're in I don't know if we're in the point where we can be having a lot of these on the shelf for repair. We can put Windows 8.1 on some of the HPs for loaners. And as you look through the Hayes High, same thing as like the method and thought of our policy is you're going to keep breaking it. You're not going to get our new shiny device, right? It's take care of it or you don't get it. So I think having some of our better HPs that we have in repair and that we can repurpose and have them for those instances. If a student's needing their machine to do homework or whatever, and an accidental damage happened, I think we can give them one of the HPs to use for 24 to 48 hours. But you're talking a day to two for repair.
How much is a screen for those?
They're run about the same as the iPads. I reached out to two companies and it's looking at $100 to replace the screen. And then they have the same kind of pricing of a battery would be X, and if it's this part of the screen, it's $79. If it's this and this, the digitizer or whatever that is, whatever their part is, it's another. It's $110. I'm working on getting all that pricing gathered up. So, and then we go to staff. Staff came back pretty interesting. Same things. We had a Yoga 12. It just didn't have a solid state hard drive, no rear camera. It had a mini HDMI port. Not that that's a deal breaker. We just thought that was odd. We hadn't seen any with mini HDMI. We had the Asus Flip i5, no solid state drive, no rear camera. Other than that, it was there. Oh, it was not sent in the RFP specs. They said it's the same one as the i3 of the student, just a different processor, so they didn't feel that they needed to send another one. But noted, we didn't receive it. HP Pro X2, that did not have an HDMI port, and I can't remember what output display port it had, but we put no because I don't think it had. I don't know what it had. I have to go back and look at that. And then we had the Surface Pro 3 that was submitted for the staff machines. It's a little bit bigger. It's got a little bit different processor. It's got an i3 processor. But other than that, it's kind of the same thing. It has no on the HDMI port, but it's got a display port that you can interface to HDMI. And we were thinking that along the same lines, as soon as we see the staff machine, that or the student machine, we could do the same thing with the staff machines. Do a Surface Pro 3, self-insure them, and be able to give the staff a little bit bigger screen. I think that screen's 11-inch. It's just a little bit larger than the 3. So that was, and that price does not include a keyboard. And if we go to the next slide, hold on, let me make sure of that before I say that. Yeah, that price did not include the keyboard. The keyboard is an extra $109. No, yeah. $103 for the Surface Pro 3 keyboard. And that comes with a pin, a stylus pin. It's like a pack, I guess, that they submitted with that. A pin, a keyboard, or a stylus and a keyboard. And that's what we had responded.
We didn't get a MacBook.
They wouldn't, Mac, we wrote it specifically for Windows because that's what Hayes High was really
So
leaning
is
towards.
this just staff laptops for Hayes High?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because putting them into two different worlds of a Windows 7 and a Windows 8 world with their current machines, we wouldn't be able, it's kind of the same thought process of the elementary, right? We're doing iPads for teachers and the students, and then trying to get them to work on a device that the student has that's different than theirs. We found it. But that would, so I just want to make it clear too, that would be the staff machine, the Surface Pro 3. There wouldn't be an additional MacBook, additional Lenovo something. That would be their staff machine. Not a tool, not an enhanced something, that would be there.
but were you counting on that purchase this year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when talking with high school, we felt that it was important that their staff be kind of in the same ballpark as their students for devices and being able to troubleshoot and answer questions and working with students to get through any of those issues. But yeah, we were planning on that. Like I said, the biggest difference is we are wanting to kind of invest more of the money into the device rather than the accidental damage protection for 3 years or for 4 years. It's the same kind of mail-in service, but we think we can probably be just as good with doing a self-maintainer type self-insurance. And if we go to the next slide, we can do what all you guys are doing right now and show you guys the breakdown of our costs. That's where it is currently. And
Did we get that?
Okay, where's this?
I just created this evening in my 30 minutes between here and.
Can you get that bigger or not?
Brian, if you email that to me, I can email it to you.
There you go. One more.
Or you should just not have that big filler in your way.
There you go. It's all on there.
There we go. We're good. So it's the 730, 937 is the Mac, the iPad purchase or the Mac purchase. We have the Hayes High Windows devices at 880, 820 for students, 60 staff. That's at 878 or 587, 240. We still got iPad cases now, and then everything obviously below stuff we still need to do. Hayes High Windows devices, and then we got the iPad cases. We got the Hayes High PC Labs, which is 28. And then we have the, Hayes Middle School PC Labs at 80. We have Jam. I included that in there because that's the remaining cost for the next 3 years for our iPad management. I've used money out of current budget to start that process and get that moving. And that's a breakdown of where we're at. As a total, 744 out of the 16, or the 1.6, and puts us at $73,256 difference. I can send this out to everybody. Like I said, I thought it'd be easier to look at because I knew some people were going to ask about where we were at, so I thought I'd put together a little capture of where we're at.
When you send it out, can you put in the quantity for iPad Mini K3 and then also the 5.8?
Yeah, I did. I just didn't have that readily available when I was doing that, and I can clean it up a little bit more before they send it out to you guys tomorrow or tonight. Just need to.
On your Hayes High, you got 587, 240. That's including cases,
No, that's not including cases. That's hardware only.
but it does include keyboards for the teachers.
It includes keyboards for both. Yeah, 587, 240. Because the keyboards come down to 6180 for the 60 devices or 60 keyboards for staff. We'd have 43,140 for the staff machines and $37,920 for the Surface 3s for students. And I can break that down a little bit better. I can put the staff, I can break down the cost. I just kind of did a quick cell grab and summarized and threw it in there for this meeting tonight.
And that's your proposal?
That's the tech committee's.
Does that include the $10,000 per year for the iPads or whatever?
No, it doesn't. We can, and that's why I say there's that 73,000 still at the bottom. There's still some things to add in there. I just wanted to give you guys a snapshot that we're not.
Do you have, I think this one, the district technology budget, that's on there somewhere, I'm sure.
What's the JAM for
JAMF, that's the iPad management software that does all of our management of them.
So what does that include?
App distribution, it does kind of app finding, right? It kind of pulls the iPad, tells us what's on it. If there's something on there we don't want on it, it alarms us. We can blacklist apps. It just kind of gives us a more of an insight into the device from the user standpoint. We can shut off a camera. If they lose it, we can log in there. We can go find it, try to find it. We're push apps through the evening, through the, queue up apps to be pushed out. We can pull apps away. We don't have to buy them district-wide. We can buy a set. We can push them to this room, pull them back, push them to over here. It just gives us that flexibility of moving stuff around and managing them without going out and touching them constantly.
Now this
And
budget,
that's an estimated cost right now. I think it's going to be close to that. I think it's going to be lower than that. Working with them on final pricing, with the initial JAM startup kickstart that we purchased for $3,000, we get a day of training, and now we're really kind of digging in and working on some pricing on the rest of it. And you pay it by device license, so really working on them and trying to get that device cost licensing down from what they originally quoted us for budgeting purposes.
this document Tracy put together before, obviously, we just, the recommendation for high school and where we're headed with that, but she will put everything together and have what fund it's coming out of, and this gives you a pretty good idea. We had talked about this at the last meeting, but we'll update that with the recommendation that Brian's making, down payment, all of those things, so. But that might give you a little bit better picture of where we are. The 10,000 self-funded K-8 repairs is on there, and several other things.
Brian, will you go through real quick again on your desktop, staff and student, which models again? Just which ones they're thinking? Just so I have this clearly written down.
Yeah, the C50 is I mean, that'll be the tech committee recommendation. That's also my recommendation, just from the tech director standpoint. And if it wouldn't be that one, it'd be looking at the M73. I feel the features and the screen size and the functionality of it, I think it's in our favor on that, for the extra memory. And like I said, I could always ask, I don't know how that works, Bill, can I ask them can I go back to them and ask them what that device would be with more memory to find out what that, comparing apples to apples?
It's part of your RFP.
Alternate device.
Alternative devices.
So I think that's,
Yeah, that's appropriate.
okay. The student devices would be the Surface 3. And really, if you just follow all the way down the right-hand side, I think you're good. And then the staff would be the Surface Pro 3. And like I said, I can put together a kind of cleaned up where we're at snapshot document tonight, first thing in the morning, and make sure it looks good, and we can send it out to you guys so you have that as well. If I want to put something together tonight to make you feel like you weren't.
Yeah, and when you do that, especially on the surfaces, why you're proposing the extra dollars? based on the lowest bid.
Okay.
Be nice to, I mean, the iPads are costing us how much in 8th grade, middle school?
I can, hey, if you give me a second, I can tell you that.
The course, around 400?
Um,
Less than that. 340?
Apple iPads K, well, I can give you the K, no, 3, no. Where are we starting? 3 or 4? 3? 3 to 8, 135 10 packs are running us 504,000, 505,
You have a per,
You got a per unit on that?
374. Sorry, I guess I could
I
have.
was gonna say, I'm
Kind
staring
of
at,
went a long way to get
I'm
there.
staring at something from previous, I got 374, so if you're gonna get a different number, I was gonna.
We were getting close. 374, and then the minis are running us 274.
this will be obviously on the,
You know, hey, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
That's
off.
right.
But, and then just to let you guys know, Marty and Jeannie couldn't be here tonight because there's the Hayes High Awards going on tonight. So, by all means, if you have any questions, send them over. Talk to you guys. You know, figure out they'll be here next Monday as well. But if there's any questions, they're one to be here. It just wasn't going to work out tonight. No obligations. Sorry.
So you're gonna send us quantities?
we'll have
The
it broke
time of
down.
these numbers?
I'll
Okay.
send you kind of a sheet that, where we're at and where we're going, pricing. Yeah.
And can we tie it back to the financing that we already approved and that we delayed approving? So we can see those numbers?
We
Because
will,
I started to get a little lost trying to tie back, you know. That sheet we just
Yeah, and I
looked
think
at.
like I said, we had the kind of the final recommendation this afternoon. Unfortunately, we wanted to get it Friday, but we needed to get a few things, other things tied up too with a few people this afternoon. So I think we finally got to the point where we're comfortable with making that today.
Yeah, Brian and I can get together first thing
It'll be-
tomorrow morning
yeah.
and put it into this format, so you'll be able to see all the numbers on one sheet. So that's no problem.
but this will be on the board agenda then. What we need to approve then, like I said, is the tech plan and then the device and financing for that device. We'll have all that broken out for the board.
And if we could get that sooner rather than later, so
We'll try to
we
get
can
it
get our
out to-
questions asked.
First thing
prior to the
tomorrow.
I think we can probably get it by tomorrow. I mean, first thing tomorrow morning.
That's the plan, is to get it
I
first
gotta
thing.
do laptop check-in tomorrow morning at about 11, but other than that, we're good.
But if you give Tracy all the
Right.
numbers, she
Yeah.
can put it together. And yeah, it needs to be cleaned up and easily understood. And we'll get it out tomorrow for sure.
Good. You want to move on, Dan?
Anything else on, anything with the technology? We need to go back to the fees.
Well, with the teachers that are retiring, we just signed all those. And with that budget that we're looking at for next year, do we have to leave the fees set where we have them?
We don't.
Are you still recommending to leave the fees alone?
We don't have a very big cushion there, Marty. Still waiting to see what's going to happen in Topeka. I would feel comfortable with what we currently have. You had talked about, or not you, but in general about technology fee K through 12. I mean, we have 9, 12 now. Whatever you guys want to change on here, let me know. I mean, and we'll bring that back, any scenarios, whatever, to the board meeting. But
Well, I think we ought to just cut all the fees on our way out. And then July 1, they can set them on whatever they want.
I don't think we have enough.
Out on top?
yeah,
We need one more.
But, I'm not in favor of raising any fees this year, in my opinion. If we could cut any at all, I would be in favor of that. But we can discuss that Monday.
Are you talking textbook fee?
Yes.
Make it equal on everybody?
Yes.
I'm generally there. I think we ought to look at the technology fee, but I think offset by more of a cut than increase in technology.
Yeah, just looking at some of those families with 3 and 4 kids, and you're looking at that number, that's getting to be a big number for a lot of people, so if we can do anything to try to really, that would be my goal.
I mean, I guess, Greg, let me ask then, I mean, you're talking about possibly the workbook, as an example, workbook material fee, reducing that, but then just say, make it technical.
No, I'm saying, if you put a $50 textbook fee in, you cut the workbook by more than $50. So it's technology. So you have a net reduction, but I think
You just move it around on where it's going.
Right.
Well,
Right.
okay, but you're proposing, you want to see a technology fee at the middle school and the elementary, right?
Well, I still think that it just needs to be fair. They're 1-to-1 now. That was the argument before as to why we didn't have it, was the high school is the only one that was 1-to-1. Now they all are. And the cost of it's no more expensive, whether they stay at school or go home. Well, I guess.
Whether we call
I
it,
think it is.
whether we call it a workbook fee or a tech fee or whatever we want to call it, I just think that overall cost will come down. I don't care how they jumble the numbers in there. But if we can get a 10, 20% reduction.
What about dropping the workbook fee from 160 to like 110, so drop $50 off that and add $20 to the technology fee? I mean, if you're adding that across the board, you're going to have the same.
But the question, I think, is, bottom line is, can you afford it?
Right.
Yeah, and you wrestle with that this week and come back
We
with
can,
a couple of scenarios there for Monday would be one.
You can pretty much tell what we're going to, whatever those fees are, we can put that together and then have that at the meeting.
Just so you're not surprised, it'd be nice to see something like $50, $75, $100 cut, what that would look like.
Right.
But-
Okay.
Now, are you, if we're talking that, are you opposed then to the $20 increase on the high school tech fee?
No. I'm
Well,
not
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you call it, other
Okay.
than driver's ed and summer school.
Right.
The rest of it.
Okay. Well, we'll put together that information and give you options then for the next meeting.
We like at least 3 options, you know that.
No one go with
So that way you have something to argue about.
Okay. Anything else then on technology, fees, anything there?
Well, what we didn't talk about, when we talk about that technology fee and self-funding, what'd you call it?
Self-funded insurance,
Yeah.
maintainer, yeah.
Do we have that information that kind of explains how that would look? I mean, you've obviously talked to others, that's the way you want to go, but, I mean, do you have a number in mind about what that's going to cost us, and then you net out the $50 tech fee? I mean,
Yeah, so.
Maybe the solution to that might be just to take a package look at it, and here's what the machines are going to cost, here's what the instructor's going to cost, here's what the self-funded portion's going to cost, and package that all up into one final, here's the total budget
That's what
for
we're-
everything.
What we started with was, I kind of worked the spreadsheet out from $5 from $1 to $100, right? And trying to figure out where that balance is on what we think breakage is. And like I said, you can talk to one district and they say, oh, we have less than 3%, right? Then you talk to another district and they say they have 10% to 15%, but it's more high school. And then you talk about their cases and they say, well, we think if you buy a better case than a cheaper case, that'll definitely reflect that. So it's really hard to find that target on. But, I mean, we can break down however you want to see it broke down and bring it back to you and give it to you guys. It's not a...
well, because, I mean, we're going to be making those decisions, right? About whether it's at the high school going home and whether we're going to put a case on it or not, right? So, I mean, based on what you think we're going to go
Shoot
do
high.
on some of those things.
If you hear 10 to 15 is your top number, I'd estimate there. It's going to be a lot better coming back a year from now saying,
Yeah.
we estimated here and we're half that, versus saying we estimated at 3% and we're 3 times that, so.
And then what we found out, what is Garnett, USD 365, wasn't that?
Yeah,
Mark?
it's Garnett.
Garnett. So Garnett is, they're a surface school district, so I got a call out to them to kind of pick their brain to find out what they've encountered over the last few years, because they did the RTs, I think, when they very first came out, so wanted to kind of pick their brain on where they're at and what they've been seeing for damage.
It goes back to expectations and holding people accountable for their device and all of that, and we're making a lot of progress there, I think, so.
That screen, I'd say, I don't know if it, I haven't heard any reports, but I don't know if that screen is more durable than the other.
Microsoft sure talks it up with the Gorilla Glass and what it is. They seem to make it seem like it's a pretty indestructible screen, but I think some of our students could probably put that to the test.
Can't they put it in the tumbler on TV?
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you see on TV, Marty.
Okay, Brian, I'm sorry, one more thing. On the
Okay.
high school plan, I know you said it was just getting started. I don't know what the title of that section was, but where they were checking it in at winter break.
Yeah.
And where you were doing the.
Yeah, the kind of the
4-night
routine
week
checkups on them.
Yes. Do you have the manpower to do that in those 2-day time frames?
Well, one of the thoughts were during GPS time, guided personal study. They have some staff in there during that, and we're going to kind of work with those staff members to kind of get them look at what to look for, right? Probably Christmas break, that long week. That's just one of the things that we want to bring them back in, because we just feel that probably the majority of them sit outside or sit in conditions that we don't want them in. So talking to Marty and Tom and Chris out there, it seemed to make a lot of sense to keep them here for that long winter break. So, and it give us a chance to kind of comb over them, review them. We have staff here still a few days that the students aren't here, so it give us a chance to kind of go through those, look at them, see what we need to do, kind of see if we need to flag something. Just give us that kind of couple days, no students, that we can kind of walk around and just kind of take a glimpse ourselves. And we thought maybe it would kind of take some of the wear and tear off from being thrown, not saying they all get thrown in the back seat, but hey, it's a long break, right? So if we can get our device and protect it, I think we should.
Is there any thought to doing a similar thing on spring break?
We talked about that. Spring break, though, is not at the end of the 9 weeks, so it's kind of in the middle. They still got assignments and they still got work to be doing.
I think we had it in there at first, and then.
They had it in there, and then after thinking about it, then it was, so, and it was like, well, then you check them out, and then you start looking at manpower versus what you're looking at.
But one of the expectations, Sarah, is that the teachers will have to help monitor all of those types of things too, as they're in their classrooms, and there just has to be more accountability on that side.
Hey, it's just kind of a refresh,
Work
right?
tickets
Stickers,
yeah.
stuff like that, just the different, it's going to be kind of, I'm not saying a different mindset, because I've been doing the laptop check-in today for the freshman class, and I was pretty impressed with how most of those devices came back. You have those few that you're kind of disappointed, but it is what it is. Out of 200 and some laptops, we had maybe 5 that, needed our attention, and more so than the others. So I think overall, our seniors checked them in already. I think the quality and care of our devices, I think, are going to be a lot better this year than maybe they've been in the past. So we've been pretty optimistic over the last 2 classes that have checked in, and we have 2 more to go, and we'll kind of be able to. We can give you guys kind of an update on that too on Monday of kind of how that looked. So.
Bill, question for you. On these agreements, do you need to read through these or approve these? Anything in the agreement that would deal with electronic harassment, would that be covered by board policy?
Which I can do before Monday.
Okay, but would we be covered if there wasn't anything with electronic
On those,
harassment?
James, I mean, like the high school and middle school,
Yeah.
that'll be part of their handbook.
Okay.
So that'll come up at a later time, but we wanted to give you everything you had here, and that'll all go through.
But they'll be aware of all that?
Yeah, that'll all go through Bill. I mean, we'll check and make sure that what we have is accurate, but you'll be approving handbooks, whatever that is.
It's probably easier, I don't know what Bill thinks, but to have one policy and have the handbooks reference the policy.
And that's
versus-
what we just talked about too, since, I mean, it'd be very similar across the board.
Well, then if you make one change, whereas, even if it's mid-year,
Yeah.
it takes a time.
Well, and you're right, because you look at the iPad policy, K8, if you change that from iPad to kind of mobile device, it kind of fits the whole thing, and then we can add sections that pertain
We'll
to
look at that.
those.
Yeah, I agree.
And you can have your district-wide one be broken down by grade level,
Yeah.
if you want.
Well, we're just saying that that one right there kind of, it's focused on iPad, but really, as we look at a tablet-type device, it kind of really encompasses the district with a few changes and tweaks.
You're probably not going to get into the detail of the differences between the systems in that policy, are you?
Probably not.
It's just-
So,
All right, I think we have everything squared away then there. All right, Rusty, do you want to come up and give us a couple updates here on the lecture hall and Washington?
Spreadsheet on the lecture hall. I've got everything pretty well hard-quoted except the bid for the seating. Estimate on the seating is going to be somewhere around $45,000. With that in mind, if you look down that left-hand column that's highlighted in green, you're looking at about $76,000 for the estimate. Hard quotes are over on the side, and you can see that we're at $30,399.10. Haven't started any of it. Basically waiting on the seating. If we don't approve the seating, the rest of it's dead in the water because the seating's got to come out first in order to do the rest of it. Originally, we were looking at about $105,000 for this project, is what's in capital outlay for it. I think we're going to be right in that $76,000 range. And that's adding a couple things to it. Originally, we were going to pull the VCT up and just leave concrete. You're going to be fighting glue and stuff. I worked with a company out of Wichita and Scott City on an ag floor that we'd done, had polished concrete done in there. They come in with a milling machine, mill off a layer, and they come back in and polish it to smooth concrete. It's a lot easier to clean and give you a lot better surface. So that's including that. And then also the original one didn't include any lighting. So we're still at $76,000, and that's including milling off and going to polished concrete and then adding LED lights in there. That's with a dimmable package. Basically, part of the reason you're getting the bid late on the seating, the company that originally put the bids together, I went back to them in December, and basically they told me they were not able to bid them, that they needed at least 9 to 11 months to get them bid, and I thought we would bid in the water, so we were going to be having to look at either next year or a Christmas time frame. Called another couple contractors that I've dealt with in the past, and they were more at the 3 to 4 months out. So started working with them to redesign and get drawings and stuff on it, and it took a little longer than what I thought. So we'll have the bid opening tomorrow on the seating. We'll have the bids for you sent out in email, and we'll address those bids at the regular board meeting then.
That work would be done this summer then?
That work will be done this summer. Wanted to go ahead and get if you look at the original capital outlay form that I gave you, I've got the seating figured in this year so that we could go ahead and get the bids done and get it encumbered to get the seating, and then everything else will be the next fiscal year budget.
Tracy, I'm sorry, I printed one off, a capital outlay, estimated revenues and expenditures for March 25th. And it had this expense coming out in 2016. We had nothing for 2015.
Capital outlay flows, though, we carry a balance, so, I mean, it's not going to make any difference if it comes out this year or next year, according to June or July.
But we had nothing budgeted for 2015.
Right, we had the full $105,000 budgeted for July 1st.
Oh, I see.
So a month early is not going to make any difference in capital outlay or 2 months.
Okay.
No, good question.
So, but we did have 40, did we? Oh, no, that was estimated revenue, anticipated revenue. Okay.
Any other questions on the lecture hall?
No, but what was wrong with the ceiling in Gym A at the high school the other night? Thing.
We evidently had some wind damage with one of the storms that we weren't aware of, and then when the rains moved through that night, we became aware of it. So I was actually out of town when we found out about it, so I called back to superintendent and had him get with Francis, and we contacted the insurance company. We had everything temporary back in.
They
so
patched it, it didn't leak with the other rain after that, but insurance adjuster was looking at it and we're going through that process.
So
So,
No
yeah,
damage to the floor?
I guess wind.
that's what we're guessing is wind. I mean, that's what it looked like from the photos that Francis sent me while I was gone, so,
Are you sticking around for a few minutes?
yeah.
I've got something for you under the other topics, so
Okay.
it won't be too painful.
You shouldn't
I don't
have given
think
him a
so.
heads up. And then the next thing is Washington.
Washington, if you look, I've got it broke out basically in 3 columns. The left-hand column basically was what HTK came in with their estimates. They kept wanting to go back to the bond and do things that we were looking at doing through the bond, and we were trying to get across to them that we were really just wanting to do enough to convert it at this point and look at the other upgrades in the bond. So part of those still, when they came in with the 73,000 on that, they were still doing some of those upgrades. Finally convinced them that we didn't need to do that, and also that in order just to get it licensed, we needed a code footprint, that we didn't need a complete set of drawings. So that's why you're going to see the big variation between what they quoted us to do the work and what it actually turned out to be. In that, you go down through the blue column there in the center, and that's all the hard quotes and where we're at on the numbers on it. So right now, as it stands, we're at $28,544 in hard quotes on it. We paid HTK for their work on the code footprint so that we could give that to Donna with connections to get the licensing. And then Brian's Concrete's already been there and put the ramps and sidewalks in. Everything else will begin June 1. The only things that you're not seeing on there are the sinks that we're installing. We're going to take and cut some cabinets down in 3 of the rooms and put in sinks and faucets for the classrooms. Move the phone system that we have currently at Connections over there and tie those in. The one room that they're going to use where they're putting all their cubicles in, the cubicles are between 6 and 7 foot high. It's a 12-foot ceiling, but it's got pendant lights at 7 foot. They're going to be dark in a bunch of places in there, so I did go ahead and go to look at switching that pendant lighting out. Went with an LED pendant lighting, and I'll have those costs for you. I'll get those put together. I'm just getting those back. There's a men's restroom upstairs that the urinals are bad in. That building, the staff is going to be probably 90% women on that second floor. There's another restroom there that could be used for men, so we're going to convert that into another women's restroom up there and take those urinals out just to eliminate the smell and clean it up. And that wasn't in the original. And I guess what I'll show you next board, or at the regular board meeting, is what that cost is. And even with that cost, we budgeted $50,000 for this, and I think we'll be below that. We'll be somewhere in the $45,000 range. Even with the ads.
And Dean, is this the portion you said, I think, that we got a grant for that will cover?
Donna got the 137,000.
Yeah, I was thinking 33, but it might be
But
37.
whatever, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
but that'll help pay for the moving, this, whatever other costs are associated with it, so, yeah.
The other things we're working on, I haven't got the spreadsheet built for it, is the playground moving. That's part of that grant that she got too, is moving the playgrounds from Lincoln and Roosevelt and O'Laughlin to the Connections site at Washington.
Now, is your staff doing that, or is that going to be
No,
contracted?
we hired it out. There's
Okay.
too much stuff there to do. Any questions on where we're at with Washington?
And just to reiterate on that, just because I've been questioned on it 2 or 3 times, we are not putting elevators in that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There's no elevators.
That's what I told, I don't know how many people I heard for some reason, or we were.
It was in the, it was
Yeah.
in their original proposal because of the bond issue, but no, that was one of the big items that got moved right away.
Yeah, I just looked, Donna's grant was 137,495, so. Do we need to do anything, Rusty, for approval of anything here on Washington?
The only thing that I really need an approval on,
Are the
we
seats?
talked about are the seats at the lecture
Okay.
hall.
All right, so that won't be, we'll put the lecture hall seating bid on, but Washington then, other than an update when we get started, we should be good on that one then. Well, assuming so.
Okay?
Thanks,
Anything else?
Rusty.
Thank you, Rusty.
Yep.
The next item is, did you have anything else, Greg?
I do, but I'll wait till the appropriate time.
No. Membership dues for KASB, they are the same as they were in the past. This will be on the board agenda. And then also, part of this are the legal, I'm trying to think of the legal assistance program. I know we call a lot, and I think, Bill, you probably even call it $11,495 for the membership, $1,650 for the legal assistant fee.
Is there a deadline on that, Dean?
I'm sorry?
Is there a deadline we have to act?
I don't
I
think
think it was on the
so.
bottom of that, whatever that page above that was, had a July 1 something, right?
Oh, July,
It says July
KSB
1.
members, this is for July 15, 16 school year is what it is.
I was just wondering if it's something we should act on, or I don't know if it matters much, but.
You're recommending that we go ahead and renew it, aren't you, Dean?
I'm recommending that we do, but
It doesn't
We go
matter.
back and forth on that after. It's one of those things that you've been doing it for 4 years, you say, hey.
Well, Dean, would you be able before next week just to give us some bullets on what we receive from participating in KASB? I mean, what justifies that number?
yes.
What makes it tough for me, Sarah, is if you drive down to Topeka and go to their office.
It's pretty nice. They got their own indoor kitchen. Taj Mahal there.
It's
Well, and I know-
tough to swallow.
Yeah, and I know we get some data that I've
Yeah.
seen us use repeatedly, but are there other things that we get from them that I don't see visibility to?
Yeah.
Just because I kind of think, okay, I see that data and we utilize it, but do we utilize enough data to justify $11,500?
Next time you're in Topeka, just stop by and give them a visit. They'll be glad to see you.
And we're just one of 286 and one of the smaller ones, or I guess it'd be medium size.
Medium size. We can move on.
But we can, it'll be on the agenda, and I'll put together the bullet points for that. The next one then is the next year, and I don't know, again, when do you want to approve the board meeting dates?
Don't we, this is one of those we hit every year. We do it now, and then we do it after July 1st.
We just need to, I mean, we have to have our July meeting set so everybody knows when that is. But with the new board, I mean, I know we had discussions on, these are all scheduled for Mondays, but at one time, it was, do we want to move to Wednesday?
Those two
What
people
are
are
your
off.
thoughts?
Those two people are off on Wednesday,
Yeah.
so we can
Set
just
it
leave
for
it.
the 6th, and that's really all we need, isn't it? I guess it doesn't matter. We can approve it, they can change it.
Yeah,
so.
we'll just approve it as is, and if they want to change it, they can.
Okay, my question on this proposed, though, is why are we, I mean, the way it stands now is we do the work session, and the following week we have the board meeting, right? So what was the thought process behind giving that week in between?
To have time to prepare for the board meeting and put everything together?
I liked it better when it was this way.
Oh, it was
First-
like this
Yeah.
previously?
Uh-huh.
So has it just been this last year?
But we didn't
that
have,
switched
we
it?
just had no meeting, or no work sessions.
Right.
Or very few, if any.
And there's a few things on here that, like August 31st is a work session, I mean, or, yes, work session, and then September 7th with some of the budget things, and if there's a holiday, the 31st, I guess, is why.
I'd say.
Oh, the 7th,
I'd say
okay,
we
I
set
have the
the
wrong
6th,
one
and they can
I'm
figure it
looking
out
at,
from
so.
there.
I have that updated on the other calendar.
Yeah, but some of these with holidays and whatnot aren't quite in the same order. January, you can see is back to back. And one of the things for the payroll, or not payroll, but for them to pay bills and whatnot, we need to have a meeting basically that third Monday. So that's what we did.
I think you can put it on there as is. If they want to change it, they can.
Okay?
So do we just change that then to the June 6th, or are we approving that entire calendar?
Prove it like it is.
Just approve it like it is for
And
next
then
week?
it can be amended or
If somebody wants to
whatever.
amend it.
Do you guys have any preference, or does it?
Prove it as is.
Well, but could we slate it for work session topic, that first, with the new board?
It'll be an agenda item for you guys on that July 6th meeting.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's all kinds of stuff we'll stack up for you on that meeting.
I was going to say, that's what I feel like the list is.
That's
not gonna
that's
get
the
any
one that
better.
has all of the things that, I think, I'm trying to think, did we do them consent? That was a debate whether we could do them all on consent or debate, or go through each one, so we'll figure that out, I guess.
Probably want to go through, I mean,
With the new board.
yeah, just because
So,
everybody, so they know what they're talking about.
yeah. So we'll do that.
Eventually, you want to get them on that consent.
Might as well just add it to our list. We'll get it in money. So.
Do what?
Just add it to our list is fine.
We're going to give you a raise
Oh, yeah.
before we leave, too.
Yeah.
So we're looking at doubling your salary, so
Nothing
Yeah.
times nothing is still nothing, so.
double it, so.
Okay, that is all of those items. Now we're down to other topics for discussion, and it always has Donna's information there. HRC minutes, they'll be under the correspondence on the agenda. But you guys have other?
Yeah, I've got one,
Yeah.
real quick. For the site councils, I just came from site council here before the board meeting. They typically do submit their reports in July. However, we did them live last year. I think that was August or September, but they're getting ready. They're all going to have their last site council meetings here, either
Right. And that was
today
the
or this
question.
week.
Do we want them to come and
Come on,
present?
July 6th.
Do it.
July 6th, looks like a good night.
Do we want them to present?
I think
Or,
so.
okay, I thought it was worthwhile.
Better than the reports.
Well,
Do it,
I had mixed feelings on it, because
well,
I think the question is, what is the board wanting from them? Would be a lot more helpful than coming in, and I thought they were somewhat directed, and some had agendas, and, but I think it's more clear if you know exactly what you want them to give you versus just having it kind of a free-for-all. You might want to move it down a couple of months, at least the new board will have their feet underneath them a little bit to where it means something. Maybe they all know what they are, but maybe not.
the question was what kind of James, I mean, everybody's wanting to know what they need to do. I think maybe I'll have them do the written
They're supposed to be
report,
finalized according to the board.
and then we can have them come in.
Right.
in August.
Yeah, we can, but I'll have them go ahead and, if their members leaving, whatever, they can
Right.
do the written.
Well, isn't there a policy? Because they always do turn them in July.
Yeah, there's a form,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have them do that.
Okay.
Okay?
I just had, when we were talking about the high school, it reminded me of something we addressed a couple of years ago that was supposed to be on a plan, and I doubt Rusty knows about this. Dean, I don't even know if you do, but at one point when we had the attempt to turf the entire area out there, there was another plan that circulated to plant Bermuda in the existing spot that it is, but then also look at redoing the football field, what I would call the JV/game field out there, and to have that leveled and plant Bermuda, which solved two problems: one, the lack of water, and two, the poor conditions. And I was just curious if that's,
Actually, I
the
am
cost
aware.
wasn't too extreme, if I remember correctly.
Actually, I am aware of it. We're going into the soccer field this year because it's a cool season grass, and we've already got Bermuda that's migrated into it. We're going to go in, overseed it with a combination of Bermudas and start it this year. And then we had talked about going in on the JV playing field and doing the same thing. But there's a couple spots in there that are not leveled up, and they do need some work done on them, and we didn't know whether we were going to get them both done in the same year, so.
Now, on the soccer field, is what you're proposing going to level it? I mean, because I'm hearing about injuries and complaints from other teams.
The injuries and stuff, what I've talked to Chris and Marty about when we were out there, when you get the cool season grasses like the fescue and stuff, some of those fescues tend to clump, and they want to basically grow in clumps, and you step on it and it's uneven and you go off. What we're looking at doing is cutting it shorter and basically forcing it back into Bermuda, and they felt like the actual surface itself was level enough to do that. It was the variation between the grass types that was causing the problem.
Okay.
And they just wanted to completely go to the Bermuda in those areas, and that's what we're looking at doing.
On the JV field, though, I think what we looked at was sodding that, and I think that's what we did on, I thought it was a soccer field, but maybe, or no, it was the practice
field.
Is that field okay?
We've got some stress on it, and that was one of the things that we looked at too. I'm trying to remember her name with the extension agents here.
Holly Dickman.
Say again, please.
Holly Dickman.
Yes. Holly had came out and brought in a guy from Manhattan to take a look at them toward the end of the season last year. And there were recommendations based on what they'd given us, and that's what Chris and Marty and I were looking at.
What type of grass is that?
Bermuda.
That is Bermuda.
Well, I just think.
We were looking at two strains. It was like a Riviera strain and I'll bring it back.
I'm not an expert on it, but I know I looked into it, and I know that one of the problems with Bermuda is seeding it is not a real effective way to grow it. Usually you need to sod it. So it's, I mean, maybe where you're over seeding an area that might work, but I think on a field like that, so I was going to say it was like $50,000, which I know is a lot, but it's
in the long run.
It's, yeah, I mean.
Yeah. We hadn't considered that, basically because I guess we were going with the fact that we were already having it migrate in there, and we already had patches of it going, and when we were talking to the Holly and the other guy that she brought out, I can't think of his name at all, I got it and I can bring that back to you. They really figured, especially on that soccer field, that we could convert it.
We had some local bids, I think 3 or so on those fields to do that. It was a lot cheaper than anybody thought it would be.
I think the plan right now is to go ahead and leave the varsity field alone this year, go ahead and get some cool season grasses back in there. I was going to oversee, there's a couple areas that look like they may be low, and they basically have water stand in them and kill them out from water standing is what it looked like. And we were going to try to bring those back to get through this season, and then really we need to go in and just get a crown on it and get it all put back in.
I'd encourage you, if you don't have them, I still have those quotes somewhere, or I could get them for you.
Yeah, send them to me. I'd be happy to look at them.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have.
Anything else?
No. Still need to meet for negotiations?
Yep. Negotiations, yeah, we need to review.
There you go. Half hour, 45?
I don't know how much, Bill has all the language and those things. Try a half hour or just start with 45?
Half hour? All right. I will make a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of negotiations for a period of 30 minutes to begin at, let's go 9:10 to 9:40, to include all members of the Board of Education, the Board Attorney, Superintendent, Director of Finance, Curriculum Director, and Assistant Superintendent. Seconded by Board Member Schwartz. Call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Motion carries 5-0.